Two modestly dressed teenagers walked into a luxury car dealership to choose two cars, but the staff arrogantly dismissed them and threw them out. How they regretted it the next day, when the boys returned, accompanied by their father, and everyone was shocked to find out who he was. They walked in like they didn't belong, two teenage boys in plain white t-shirts and faded shorts, sneakers barely clean. No watches, no belts, no air of wealth. Just curiosity, and the kind of quiet confidence that made people uncomfortable. The showroom was silent at first, glass walls catching morning light, rows of cars gleaming like jewelry under stage lights. They stopped at a McLaren Sabre, peering through the glass, then moved to the Jesko Absolute. One boy crouched to examine the carbon fiber splitter, his fingers hovering just above the paint. "Can I help you?" The salesman's voice carried more skepticism than service. The older boy stood. "Yeah. We're deciding between this and the McLaren." The salesman blinked. Then smiled, the kind of smile that never reached the eyes. "Those run over 2 million," he said slowly, enunciating each word like a warning. "And they don't come with payment plans." "We know," said the younger boy, voice firm but calm. A low laugh rose from another corner of the room, a second salesman, leaning on the hood of an Aston Martin, watching. Even a customer chuckled. The first salesman crossed his arms. "Boys, maybe try something more your speed. There's a used lot across town. Good deals on Civics. We're not looking for used," the older boy said, still steady. "We're here to buy." "Really?" The man glanced down at their shoes, his smile tightening. "You sure you're not just here to take pictures for TikTok?" They didn't answer. "You got names?" he pressed, clearly enjoying the performance now. "Parents nearby? Or is this a school field trip?" "Never mind," the older one said. He touched his brother's shoulder. "Let's go." The younger boy hesitated a second longer, then nodded. They turned and walked out, leaving nothing behind, no threats, no final words, no second glances. Just two silhouettes disappearing through the glass doors into the sunlight. Inside, the salesman shook his head. "Every week," he muttered. "Kids wasting everyone's time." What he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that by 9 a.m. tomorrow, those same boys would return in machines worth more than the entire showroom combined. And this time, they wouldn't come alone. At exactly 8:57 a.m., the pavement outside the dealership began to vibrate. The first engine was low, thunderous, a matte black Pagani Huayra, its signature curves slicing the morning air. Seconds later came the second car, a silver Koenigsegg Jesko, polished like a mirror, its twin-turbo V8 snarling like something alive. They didn't park in designated spaces. They stopped directly in front of the glass entrance, the engines idling for a moment before cutting in perfect synchrony. The silence that followed was immediate and total. From the first desk inside, Craig Bellamy looked up. He stood slowly, coffee forgotten, his eyes frozen on the two machines outside. One door opened. Then the other. Out stepped the same boys, same faces, same lean frames, still in those plain white t-shirts and shorts. Only this time, the simplicity was deliberate. A statement. A controlled burn. Then came the third car, an understated black Mercedes-Maybach S680, gliding in behind them like a finishing move. From its back seat stepped a man in his 50s. No watches, no rings. Just a charcoal suit tailored so precisely it gave no hint of wealth, only power. The younger boy walked ahead, toward the door. The older one held it open for their father. No one spoke. The glass doors parted. Every eye in the showroom turned. Craig's throat tightened. The manager appeared from the hallway, half aware something seismic had entered the room. "Welcome," he said quickly. "Please come in." The father nodded once. "We're not here to browse." The older boy walked straight to the McLaren Sabre, his brother trailing a step behind. No hesitation this time. No questions. The manager followed. "Would you like a sales associate too?" "No," the father said. "Yesterday, your associate informed them this car was too expensive. That they should try the used lot." The manager glanced sideways at Craig, whose face had turned a shade lighter. That shouldn't have. It did, the father interrupted. Now we're here to purchase. You'll process both sales personally. No commissions. No photos. No apologies. He handed the manager a sleek black card. The manager took it with both hands like it might detonate. Of course, sir. Absolutely. The boys circled their chosen cars one final time, not with awe, but calculation. One reached for the McLaren's door handle and paused. We'll take it, he said. Him too. For the Jesco. They didn't ask about financing. They didn't ask about options. They just said yes. From the lounge area, a woman who'd laughed yesterday watched in disbelief. Her coffee trembled slightly in her hand. Her husband whispered something, but she didn't respond. Nobody did. Craig tried to retreat, but the father's voice stopped him cold. You judge them by their shirts, he said, eyes still on the paperwork. Not their questions. Not their posture. Not their knowledge. Just fabric. Sir, I made a mistake. Craig stammered. I didn't know who they. That's the point, the man said. He turned finally, not to Craig, but to his sons. You don't buy respect with money, he said. But you can buy silence. The paperwork concluded in less than 30 minutes. No fuss. No fanfare. The keys were handed over. The cars would be registered under a holding trust. Titles sealed. No one would know their names unless they wanted them known. Before they left, the father turned once more. Tell your staff, he said, that next time someone walks in wearing less than you expect, look harder. They might own more than you'll ever touch. They left together. 2 boys. 3 cars. 1 truth. And behind them, silence. The cars were delivered 2 days later. Not to a mansion. Not to a gated estate. But to a discreet concrete structure outside Palo Alto, part industrial, part fortress. No address on the front, just a lettered sign, Meridian 7 Technologies, private development. The drivers didn't ask questions. They knew better. Inside, the boys helped guide the cars into a temperature-controlled garage, one lined with patent diagrams, solar panels, and a single punching bag. There were no luxury paintings, no gaming setups, no waste. Just discipline. Their father, Nathan Hale, didn't believe in rewards. He believed in reflection. Why didn't you say anything? The younger one had asked that evening, their first day back. Nathan had paused, setting his tea down. Because words are a currency too, he'd said. Use them cheaply, and no one listens when it matters. This was the way they'd been raised. No summer camps. No influencers. Just 3 rules. 1. No excuses. 2. No debt. 3. No boasting. Nathan Hale wasn't famous, but people in certain circles watched his every move. He built Meridian 7 from a single algorithm at 23. Sold it once. Bought it back 10 years later when the acquirers ran it into the ground. Since then, he turned it into a quiet empire of predictive software used in everything from autonomous logistics to intelligence systems. Government contracts. Medical logistics. Earthquake modeling. He didn't like press. He hated waste. He taught his sons coding before they could ride bikes. He showed them how servers breathe, how silence hums, how ideas become weapons or shields depending on the hands that wield them. They had no social media. Their phones had no games. Every Saturday, they spent 3 hours in silence, reading, thinking, building. The morning they had walked into that dealership in t-shirts, Nathan had known they would be judged. That was the lesson. I want you to feel it, he'd said before they stepped out of the car. Not imagine it. Feel it. And remember what it smells like. What it sounds like. So we're testing them? The older son had asked. No, Nathan said. You're testing yourselves. He didn't come in with them that first day. He watched from the cafe across the street, one eye on the screen of his laptop, the other behind tinted lenses. He saw them walk out, humiliated but upright. And that night neither of them spoke much at dinner. Which was exactly the point. He didn't raise them to be pitied. He raised them to understand. Back at the dealership, fallout had begun. Craig Bellamy was pulled into a meeting the following Monday. The general manager, a nervous man named Victor Lopez, sat across from him, jaw tight. "Do you know who that was?" he asked, voice low. Craig nodded. "I figured it out." "Too late," Victor said. "You mock the sons of the man who owns the predictive maintenance system we use. Do you have any idea what he could do to our supply chain?" Craig stayed silent. Victor tossed a file across the desk. "They bought over $8 million worth of vehicles. No negotiation. Black card. Full payment. And they won't take delivery photos. Won't give a quote. You lost us a relationship we didn't even know we had. Are you firing me?" Victor sighed. "HR wants your head. But Mr. Hale sent an email this morning." Craig looked up. "He said not to fire you." Craig blinked. "He said?" Victor continued reading from his screen. "Keep him. Let him learn what long memory looks like in practice." Victor leaned back. "That scare you?" It did. Craig returned to his desk, but everything felt different now. Every customer reminded him of those boys. Every laugh felt like a warning. And Nathan? He didn't speak of the dealership again. He didn't need to. The lesson had landed. But something inside him shifted that week, something only his sons noticed. He stopped working after 8 p.m. for the first time in years. He cooked dinner 3 nights in a row. He began a sentence at breakfast, and didn't finish it for 20 minutes. "Why didn't you correct them?" the older son asked again one night, softer this time. Nathan looked out at the mountains. "Because I already knew who you were," he said. "They needed to learn." The younger one leaned forward. "So what now?" Nathan smiled, the first genuine one they'd seen since the dealership. "No," he said. "We build something better. And we let them wonder how you got there." The Hale house didn't echo. Every surface, every hallway, every corner absorbed sound like it was part of the design. Even the boys had noticed it by age 10, how nothing in their home clattered, how no voice was ever raised, how stillness felt not like peace, but control. Nathan had once lived differently. He rarely spoke of those years, but one evening, long after the dealership incident, the younger son, Adam, asked a question that made his father stop mid-motion. "Were you always this quiet?" Nathan didn't answer immediately. He set the dish he was drying on the rack and leaned against the counter. "No," he said at last. "Once I spoke too much." The boys were quiet, sensing something rare. "I was 27, he continued. "We just landed the biggest contract of our lives, autonomous fleet prediction for Argo Global Freight. I gave an interview. Told a story about where we came from. About how we used to code from a basement in Fresno. How we were overlooked. Undervalued. It made a great headline." He paused, then added, 6 months later, Argo sold our system to our competitor behind our back. Because I gave them the story. Not the product." James, the older son, leaned forward. "That's why you don't talk to press? That's why I don't mistake attention for leverage." They nodded, as they always did. But Adam looked down. Because lately, he wasn't so sure. He'd started noticing things. How people looked at them, not just with awe, but discomfort. Fear. How their last school had shifted them into independent study not because of academic excellence, but because the other kids didn't engage well. How the silence that made them strong also made them separate. At night, Adam scrolled quietly through forums he wasn't supposed to be on. He read stories from kids who had nothing, really nothing, and still spoke loudly. Who raised money for causes. Who stood up in public meetings and argued for clean water, affordable internet, safe housing. They didn't have black cards or hypercars. They had their voices. That thought lingered, even as his father spoke of strategy, patience, and power. especially when they visited the warehouse. It wasn't a traditional headquarters. Just a 3-story structure on the edge of Palo Alto, outfitted with secure servers and biometric locks. This was where Meridian 7 tested its predictive models, healthcare triage simulations, disaster routing for FEMA, prototype logistics for a defense client Nathan never named. The boys weren't allowed on the 3rd floor. But Adam had once caught a glimpse: rooms lined with screens, satellite feeds, and something colder, cleaner, than software. That night, he asked again, "Is that where you keep the government stuff?" Nathan paused. "You don't need to worry about that floor." "Why not?" "Because you're not ready to ask the right questions." James, ever the student, accepted that. Adam didn't. A week later, Adam began building his own project, quietly, after hours, using repurposed microcontrollers and open-source software. It was crude at first, a neighborhood analytics tool that mapped supply chains for schools in underserved zip codes. Where school lunches got delayed. Where bus routes missed stops. Where heating systems failed in cold months. He didn't ask for permission. He just built it. When he showed James the prototype, his brother was impressed. "You made this?" "Yeah." "Why?" Adam hesitated. "Because maybe some people don't have time for silence. Maybe they need help now." James didn't argue. But he also didn't help. Nathan found out 3 weeks later. He noticed the power consumption in the server room was off. Traced it to an isolated rack the boys weren't authorized to use. When he confronted Adam, there was no yelling, just a question. "Why are you working in secret?" Adam didn't flinch. "Because I knew you'd shut it down." Nathan looked at the interface. It was messy but promising. His eyes scanned the code, the data points. "You're mapping public failure. I'm highlighting blind spots. That's politics." "No," Adam said. "It's empathy." The silence that followed was long. Finally, Nathan stepped back. "You want to use our tools to fix a broken city?" "Yes." Nathan nodded once. "Then do it properly." That night, Adam received a secure login to the 2nd floor systems. Full access. No restrictions. A single line of text came with it: "Convince me." He did. Within 2 months, Adam's tool had been quietly adopted by a nonprofit in San Jose. Anonymous funding followed. No press releases. No names. But word spread. Not about the Hales, no one outside knew, but about a new platform that gave school administrators the power to see problems before they exploded. A city council member asked about it. A think tank in Boston requested access. And Nathan said nothing. Because sometimes, he understood, silence wasn't about hiding. It was about listening. And Adam? He'd learned something his father never said out loud: that strength wasn't in silence itself, it was in knowing when to break it. It began with a knock on the door. Not the glass one at the front of the garage, that one had cameras, sensors, alarms. This knock came at the side gate. 3 raps. Slow. Measured. Nathan didn't answer right away. He watched from the internal monitor. A woman, mid-50s, hair pulled back in a neat twist, her blazer creased from travel. She held nothing in her hands. She looked straight into the camera. He recognized her instantly. Rachel Vaughn. She hadn't aged the way some people do, not softer, not dimmer. Her face was sharper now, her eyes even more direct. He opened the gate. They stood in silence for a long second, the weight of 2 decades pressing between them. "I'm not here to settle old debts," she said first. "I didn't assume you were," Nathan replied. "I'm here about your son." Nathan's stillness fractured, just slightly. "Which one?" "Adam." That was the moment he knew, whatever peace he had been building, whatever control he'd rehearsed, it had just changed. Rachel stepped inside. 23 years ago, they had started Meridian 7 together. Rachel was the algorithm's architect. Nathan was the strategist. She had walked away when the Pentagon contracts started. He had stayed. She took a seat in the office. "I saw his code." Nathan didn't ask how. He's smarter than you, she said. Not technically, but emotionally. He codes with context. That scares people. He leaned back. What do you want? Rachel placed a folder on the table. Inside, screenshots of Adam's platform, usage spikes in red zone cities, chatter from regional policy groups. He's drawn attention from people who believe prediction should serve power, not people. Nathan read the file. Is this a warning? No, she said. It's an offer. I run an independent lab now. No defense contracts. Pure civilian AI. We protect our own. If Adam's ready, I'll sponsor his platform. Globally. He's 16, Nathan said. Then maybe stop treating him like a copy of you. Nathan said nothing. Rachel stood. You didn't listen to me back then. Don't make the same mistake now. As she left, Adam appeared in the hallway. He'd been listening. I don't need protection, he said. Nathan turned to him. Yes. You do. But not from her. Adam watched his father closely. From who then? Nathan didn't answer. Because he didn't know yet, not fully, but the algorithm that had once made him a fortune was now drawing heat. And if Adam kept going, if his platform reached the wrong hands, it wouldn't be about school bus routes anymore. It would be about power. And who gets to wield it. It wasn't meant to go viral. Adam's update had been simple, a new visualization layer on his school infrastructure dashboard, a heat map showing where HVAC systems had failed during last week's record heatwave. He'd posted the changelog on a small developer forum under a pseudonym. No marketing, no tags. But someone reposted it. A teacher in Phoenix. Then a city planner in Fresno. Then an education columnist with 400,000 followers on X. Within 48 hours, the dashboard was being linked across districts in 6 states. Parents shared it in PTA groups. Local journalists used it to press school boards. One school principal resigned after a public confrontation using Adam's data. He hadn't even given it a name. Now people were calling it Project Clearbell. The attention hit harder than he expected. His inbox flooded. 3 nonprofits asked to license it. A senator's aide reached out. Rachel Vaughn sent a 3-word message, "It's starting." Ready? Nathan saw the fire coming before Adam did. He shut off media access to the house. Alerted the company's network ops team. Sealed 3rd floor access completely. For the first time in years, he looked afraid, not visibly, but in the small things, the way he triple-checked locks, how he sat awake at night without reading. James noticed too. But Adam? He wasn't afraid. He was conflicted. You always said our work should have meaning, he told his father. Nathan stood still. And I always said to protect what you build. James was watching, leaning against the wall, arms crossed. Adam continued. This thing, it's helping people. We can't just shut it down. Nathan's voice was calm, but cold. Then they'll own it. You'll lose control. What if that's the point? Adam's voice was sharper now. Maybe control isn't the highest goal. James straightened, finally stepping in. He's right, he said. This isn't a weapon. It's not military-grade AI. It's a civic tool. Nathan turned to both sons. You don't understand how fast attention turns into agenda. They'll take your model, build proprietary variants, slap logos on them, twist the optics. You'll become the story, not the work. So what? Adam challenged. You raised us to be invisible. To play chess in the dark. But maybe this isn't chess. Maybe it's a megaphone. Nathan exhaled. You think the public will protect you? I think they deserve a tool that sees them. The silence was deeper than usual, not peaceful, not strategic. Just thick with unspoken lines being drawn. Finally, Nathan stepped back. I can't stop you, he said. But I won't shield you either. Not from the noise. Not from the fallout. Adam nodded. I never asked for that. He launched the public version of Clearbell that night. He wrote a simple description, a tool to see where systems fail the people they're meant to serve. Built by someone who used to be invisible. He didn't sign it. But he didn't hide either. By morning, the traffic spike crashed the servers. Volunteers mirrored the code on GitHub. A university professor cited it in a panel on public transparency. For the first time in Adam Hale's life, his voice didn't echo in a quiet room. It rippled through cities. James watched from the sidelines, proud, nervous, uncertain. He stayed up that night reorganizing their home network, hardening firewalls, securing ports Nathan hadn't touched in years. And Nathan? He sat in his private study, reading comments under the Clearbell post. Some praised it. Others called it radical. One accused it of being backed by foreign NGOs. Another insisted it was AI propaganda from Silicon Valley elites. He closed the laptop. Outside, the moon hung low, the color of bone. For the first time in decades, Nathan Hale wasn't sure if silence had protected anything. And his son, the one who broke that silence, had never felt more alive. 3 days after launch, Clearbell was front-page news in The Atlantic. "The teen who made America's schools transparent," the headline read, though Adam never gave them his name. Someone traced the IP of the original push to Palo Alto. Someone else recognized the architecture of the code, its surgical logic, its economic data handling. A third-party analyst tied it to infrastructure tools Nathan Hale's firm had once licensed to FEMA. That's when the calls started. Not from journalists. From lawyers. From lobbyists. From venture capital firms offering equity, partnerships, or influence. All wrapped in polished words: advisory board, strategic guidance, impact acceleration. Adam ignored them. Until the Department of Education requested a private briefing. The request wasn't optional. James found the letter in the mail pile, thick paper with no return address. Inside, a single sentence: "We would like to understand your platform better." Thursday. Washington, D.C. tickets arranged. He handed it to Adam silently. Nathan read it. Then said only 2 words. "Don't go." Adam folded the letter. "I have to. They'll try to own you. Then I'll say no." "You think it's that easy?" "No," Adam said. "But it's necessary." Nathan didn't argue. He knew it was already decided. James went with him. Not as a chaperone, as backup. They flew overnight. Stayed in a hotel 2 blocks from the capital. Neither spoke much, but in the quiet of that sterile room, James finally said what had been building for weeks. "You know this is the line," he said. "After this, you're not anonymous. Not protected." Adam stared at the ceiling. "I don't want protection anymore. I want the truth to outlive me." The next morning, they walked into the Department of Education through the side entrance. Security scanned them, badges were printed, and they were led to a windowless conference room with a pitcher of water and 6 chairs. 3 people entered. A deputy undersecretary, a policy advisor, and a man who never gave his name. He didn't need to. His briefcase was from Langley. The questioning began politely. "How does Clearbell process data? What protocols do you follow to avoid bias? Who else has access?" Then it shifted. "Are you accepting funding? Would you consider federal integration? Would you consider exclusive licensing?" Adam listened. Answered carefully. Emphasized open source values. Civic benefit. Decentralized ownership. No names. No tracking. But they didn't care about data. They cared about control. The nameless man finally leaned forward. "Look," he said, voice steady, smooth. "You've built something that exposes inefficiencies. But inefficiency is only half the picture. We deal with sabotage. Hostile actors. Weaponized information." Adam didn't blink. "Clearbell doesn't track people. No. But it trains people to ask the right questions. Sometimes that's just as dangerous." James spoke now, his voice quiet. "Are you saying civic awareness is a national threat?" The man smiled thinly. I'm saying this platform could be hijacked. Used to fuel distrust in systems already under pressure. Adam stood. Or maybe it builds accountability. That depends who's holding the mic, the man replied. Adam picked up his bag. This meeting is over. The undersecretary called after them. You'll hear from us again. Adam didn't answer. Outside, on the steps of the Capitol, James finally asked. Now what? Adam checked his phone. The Clearbell server had been hit with its first DDoS attack. And still, requests were coming in. A nonprofit in Detroit, a student union in St. Louis, a school district in Maine. He turned to James. Now we decide whether we scale, or shut it all down. Back home, Nathan was waiting. He'd seen the attack logs. He'd seen the tracking pings, subtle, invasive, the digital equivalent of a knock on the back door in the middle of the night. He said only this. Once you speak, you can't unspeak. Adam nodded. Then I guess we better be worth listening to. It started small, a similar interface, a similar layout. A platform called InsightED, claiming to provide transparency into school performance and public resource allocation. But to Adam, the structure felt too familiar. Too exact. Then he looked at the code. It was a stripped-down version of Clearbell, same data architecture, same update logic. Only now it carried the branding of a political action group known for aggressive lobbying and partisan spin. Their tagline wasn't, "See what's broken." It was, "See who's to blame." They'd taken his framework and rewritten the intent. InsightED didn't just show where school facilities failed, it colored those failures red or blue, depending on the political majority of the school district. It let users filter by party lines. It promoted outrage, not solutions. Adam felt it like a punch to the chest. Within a week, 3 conservative pundits cited InsightED in televised interviews. A Senate candidate retweeted it with the caption, "Clearbell was a start. This is the future. Data that holds the corrupt accountable." James came into his room late that night. "They forked it," he said. "Slapped a new skin on it and added bias flags." Adam sat at his desk, staring at 2 browser windows. One showing Clearbell's usage map, still growing. The other? InsightED, now on its 4th media mention. James continued. "It's dirty. But it's legal. I made it open source for a reason," Adam said. "They're distorting it." "I know. So stop them." Adam stood abruptly, knocking over a cup of pens. "How? By locking it down? I can't claim to stand for transparency and then start pulling strings when it's inconvenient." James leaned forward. "Then at least say something. Publicly. Make a statement. Separate yourself." Adam didn't respond. "Adam." "I said no," he snapped. Then softer. "They'll twist that too. Say I'm afraid of scrutiny. Say I'm partisan." James crossed his arms. "So you'll let them rewrite your values because you're scared of being misunderstood?" Adam's jaw tightened. "You think Dad would go public?" "He hasn't said a word. Not about this. Not about anything." That name ended the conversation. Nathan had been watching everything. But he hadn't spoken. He hadn't offered strategy, defense, or even caution. Just distance. When Adam confronted him in the server room, the room was dark except for the LED hum of activity. "You knew this would happen," Adam said. Nathan didn't look up. "Of course. And you said nothing." Nathan finally turned. "Because I wanted to see how you'd react. This is the price of public work. If you can't bear misuse, don't offer tools." Adam stared at him, incredulous. "So you think I should just accept this?" "I think," Nathan said slowly, "you've left the chessboard. And once you leave the rules, you don't get to complain when someone else rewrites them." Adam exhaled, shaking his head. "You're more afraid of being seen than being stolen from." Nathan's eyes hardened. "I'm not afraid. I've already paid that cost. You're the one who has to decide if your principles are stronger than your pride." Adam left. For 2 days he said nothing. Ignored calls, ignored James, ignored the increasingly loud requests from journalists asking him to comment on Insight ED. Then, on the third night, he opened a blank post on Clearbell's blog. He titled it, "The Mirror is Broken." And he wrote, "I built Clearbell to spotlight systemic failure, not to divide, not to weaponize. Transparency is not vengeance. If someone takes our code and uses it to attack rather than inform, that's not innovation. It's theft, not of data, but of intent. We can't control what people build from open tools. But we can say what we stand for. Clearbell stands for dignity. And dignity doesn't come with party lines." He posted it without telling Nathan. Or James. Then he turned off his phone. The post went viral. Teachers reposted it. City planners shared it. Even a few members of Congress, quietly, commented beneath with simple words like, "Respect. Well said. Truth." Insight ED responded with a snide blog post titled, "The Teenager Can't Handle Real Data," accusing him of censorship, bias, and fragility. Adam didn't reply. But a week later, Insight ED's GitHub repository was flagged for API abuse. Turns out they'd scraped third-party data without proper attribution. Their site was suspended pending investigation. And Clearbell? It kept growing. Quietly. Steadily. Authentically. At dinner, Nathan finally broke the silence. "You said the thing I never did," he said, not looking up from his plate. Adam looked across the table, stunned. "You mean, publicly?" "No," Nathan said. "Honestly." The email came at 2:14 a.m. Subject, Proposal for Global Collaboration, World Forum on Civic Technologies. The sender wasn't a journalist. Not a politician. It was the director of a Geneva-based think tank that advised the United Nations on digital infrastructure and public transparency. Adam reread the email 3 times, then clicked the attachment. It was a formal invitation. "We are convening a global pilot initiative to integrate civic tech platforms into municipal infrastructure in 10 cities across 5 continents. Clearbell has been identified as a model architecture for community accountability. We invite you to lead the technical design group. Full support. Full funding. Full visibility." Adam's stomach turned, not with fear, with realization. They didn't want to copy him. They wanted to give him the stage. He printed the letter and stared at it over breakfast. Nathan said nothing when he saw it. But his posture shifted, straighter, more alert. James whistled. "That's enormous." Adam nodded. "It is." "So? What are you going to do?" Adam didn't answer. Because the real question wasn't "can I do this?" It was "should I?" For the next 48 hours, he researched the initiative. Everything looked clean. Transparent governance structure. Open funding channels. Collaboration with city-level NGOs. But one clause stood out in the memorandum. Participants must agree to localized adaptation of all source code per host government request. He read that line over and over. Localized adaptation. He knew what that meant. A version in Lagos might emphasize traffic. A version in Jakarta might be built around flood zones. But in places like Dubai, Moscow, or Sao Paulo, adaptation might mean censorship. Or worse, surveillance repackaged as help. He met with the Geneva delegation over a secure video call. The woman who led the team, Dr. Lillian Herzog, was measured and intelligent. She spoke fluently about digital ethics. But when he brought up the adaptation clause, she didn't flinch. "It's about sovereignty," she said. "We cannot impose one nation's values onto another's governance system." "What if they use my code to track dissent?" Adam asked. "They won't," she replied. Then, gently, "But even if they do, will that stop someone else from doing it without your knowledge?" That question haunted him. Because the answer was no. If he didn't join, someone else would replicate the system anyway, less ethically, less transparently. If he did join, he could build protections. Advocate for limits. create a trail of resistance inside the structure itself. The next night, he walked into Nathan's study. "I don't want to become what we fought against," Adam said. "But if I stay out, the wrong people take over." Nathan was silent for a moment. Then he said, "Do you know what power actually is?" Adam waited. "It's not in control. It's not in silence. It's in permission. What you allow to happen in your name, that's your legacy." Adam nodded slowly. "So what would you do?" Nathan closed his laptop. "I'd say no. Because I never trusted the world to use good tools well. That's why I hid." Adam looked at him. "And are you proud of that?" Nathan's gaze flickered. "No." Later that night, Adam found James in the garage, tuning the cooling system for one of the old battery walls they'd repurposed for testing. "I'm going to Geneva," Adam said. James looked up but didn't smile. "You sure?" "No," Adam admitted. "But I know one thing, the only way to protect the code is to stay inside it. At the table. Watching. Fighting. Quiet rebellion from the core." James leaned back. "You'll need a team." Adam smiled. "I was hoping you'd say that." They left for Geneva 2 weeks later. The forum was held in a former opera house turned tech facility, high ceilings and exposed beams mixed with projection glass and real-time dashboards. Every country had a delegation. Every delegate had an agenda. Adam watched. Listened. And then, he spoke. He walked onto the stage for the keynote panel wearing a plain black hoodie, no logos, no title, no corporate sponsor. Just a slide behind him. "Transparency is not software. It's discipline." The room hushed. He didn't talk about Clearbell's origin. He didn't talk about the media or the politics. He talked about his users. The woman who emailed him from South Carolina saying she used Clearbell to argue for working heat in her school. The high school student in Manila who translated the dashboard for a local protest group. The city planner in Cape Town who built a neighborhood proposal around it. And then he said this. "Open source doesn't mean open permission. We build these tools so the world can see itself. But mirrors can be angled to lie. I'm here to keep the angle honest. Even if I have to do it from inside the mirror." He left the stage to a standing ovation. But in the crowd, one man didn't clap. He wore a tailored gray suit and an expression that didn't match the applause around him. Later, Adam asked one of the organizers who he was. "Government liaison from one of the adaptive regions," she said carefully. "His name's not public. But he's very interested in your access controls." That night, a quiet alert went off in the Clearbell test server. Someone had attempted a shadow login through a diplomatic relay IP. Adam shut down the node manually and stared at the blinking terminal for a long time. This wasn't just civic tech anymore. This was power. And the whole world was watching. They didn't break the system. But they came close enough that Adam felt the tremor in his chest before the logs caught up. The DDoS attack had lasted just 36 minutes, a flash flood of junk traffic. But what came after was colder, more precise. A diplomatic relay. An attempt to access the back end not through brute force, but through a cloaked credential injection from a state-level proxy. Not amateurs. Not attention seekers. This was surgical. Strategic. Someone didn't want to destroy Clearbell. They wanted to own it. He stared at the blinking red line on his terminal. Not just a breach attempt, a question asked without words. "Will you fight us? Or join us? Or get out of the way?" For the first time since all of this had begun, Adam didn't know the answer. He didn't tell anyone about the attempt. Not at first. Not James, not his father, not Rachel, not even the Geneva Organizing Committee. He sat in silence at his hotel desk, watching the sun rise behind the Alps, his laptop glowing in the half-dark like a weapon he no longer trusted himself to carry. Clearbell had never been meant to scale this far. It was a civic tool. A quiet rebellion. A way to see broken systems without shouting. It was born of data, empathy, and restraint. But now it was a mirror being angled by too many hands. And somewhere along the way, Adam had stopped recognizing his reflection. At 5:14 a.m., he opened the repository's core commit history. And for the first time in 2 years, he stared at his own name, not as a creator, but as a liability. By 7 a.m., he had written the final patch. Final commit, platform sunset protocol initiated. Archive will be made public in 72 hours. Fork freely. My name is no longer attached to the active lineage. Then he sat back, closed the lid, and breathed. When James called, his voice was sharp with confusion. "What are you doing?" "I'm walking away," Adam said. "You're abandoning it?" "No," he said softer. "I'm releasing it. They'll twist it again. They already have. But you fought so hard." "I did. And now it's time to fight for something else. Not ownership. Not legacy. Just freedom, from the system, from the spotlight, from being someone people need to point at when they want to feel better or worse." Silence on the line. Then, finally, James said, "Come home." He landed in San Francisco 3 days later. The house was unchanged. The same white walls, the same humming server room. Nathan picked him up, as he always did, in silence. But this silence was different. It wasn't judgment or hesitation. It was understanding. They didn't speak in the car. But when they pulled into the garage, Nathan finally said, "You were never supposed to carry it alone." Adam looked at him. "I know. But you taught me how." That night, Adam sat in his childhood room, surrounded by boxes of notebooks, wires, server backups. He opened one of the boxes, old printouts from the first Clearbell build. He flipped through the notes, the flowcharts, the crude hand-drawn maps of school systems and budget overlays. He stopped at a page labeled, "Transparency is not equal to control." He had written it in blue pen, underlined twice. He closed the notebook. That was the version of him who had built something pure. And maybe naive. But also necessary. That kid still existed. He just no longer needed a platform to prove it. Clearbell's shutdown made headlines for a week. The press called it everything: a retreat, a statement, a warning, a mistake. Political analysts speculated about legal threats, secret buyouts, backroom pressure. Some accused Adam of arrogance. Others called him principled. He didn't answer any of them. Instead, he quietly launched something else. No name. No blog. Just a repo on a news server, buried 3 directories deep. It wasn't a platform. It was a framework, a modular civic toolkit for communities to build their own local transparency dashboards without centralized oversight. No login. No central database. Just open modules, clean water reporting, housing code audits, bus route tracking. He called it nothing. Others started calling it field glass. But Adam never confirmed it was his. He didn't have to. The code spoke for itself. One afternoon, he stood with Nathan in the garage. The walls had changed. They'd taken down the old awards, the patent frames, even the original Clearbell map. In their place hung a single printout. A map. But not global. Local. Just a 10-mile radius around East Palo Alto. Pinpoints of need. Empty lots. Food deserts. Unfunded clinics. Everything the global stage had skipped over. "Are you ever going back?" Nathan asked quietly. Adam shook his head. "No. But I'll help build things that never have to leave." Nathan considered this, then nodded. "That's something I never figured out. How to build small and let it matter." Adam smiled faintly. "I only learned because you build big. And let me watch it break." Years later, people would still bring up Clearbell at conferences, in lectures, in case studies. Some called it a cautionary tale. Others, a blueprint. A few tried to rebuild it under different names: Bright Data, Civic Radar, PulseGrid, but none lasted long. Because none had what Adam had given it, and then taken away. Doubt. The willingness to stop. To say, this far, and no further. To walk away before the mission became a mask. And that, in the end, was the real legacy. Not a system. Not a name. But the decision to exit through the source, not in fear, not in surrender, but in quiet clarity. Knowing that if you ever want to stay clean in a world addicted to power, sometimes the only way to win is to disappear before they even realize they've started playing.